try a little kindness. That's an idea. Song. Glenn Campbell, Try a Little Kindness. Something we all can be reminded of from time to time. Hello and welcome, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of your life. My name is Bob Prentice. I own a company we call Professional Development Systems. My friends, they call me Mr. Attitude because that's a subject I've been talking for about 35 years about all over the country to literally 1 million plus people. I just love sharing my heart and mind on the subject of attitude and leadership and team building and customer service and human relations and communications, all these wonderful subjects of growth and professional development. And now we're going to discuss the subject of kindness. Let me share a little bit with you on my kindness journey and some of the strategies I currently have to maximize kindness in my life. Let's get started, shall we? Well, first of all, it began for me as a small child, 5-6 years of age. I remember going to the schoolyard, the playground at school, and the kids at school weren't always all that friendly and nice to me. I remember that very clearly. Something about my curly red hair and a face full of freckles as a little boy. And, oh yes, the big ears were very commonly mentioned by the other kids in school. They would poke at me, kind of make fun of me, and say mean things to me. Today they call it bullying, I guess, but back then it was just kids being kids, and I learned to kind of struggle with it, I guess you might say. I struggled with it big time. I didn't like having my ears flicked by the kids behind me on the school bus. Kids were mean. So I had to come up with some creative strategies, and that's what I did. I decided to win them to my way of thinking, my way of being and operating. And so I started getting creative and innovative with everything I could do. I would be silly. I would make fun of myself first. I would bring them treats and games. And people that were mean, I believed I needed to win them over to my way of thinking about things, and so I would try anything and everything I could come up with. And I still do that yet today, because we encounter mean people, or people that are not very happy, or people that are hurting. Years ago, a good friend shared this with me. She said, treat every person that you meet as if their heart is breaking, because chances are it probably is. And so from that moment, I decided to really, really work hard at treating people in a kind way. Well, when Rebecca asked me to come and share on this subject of kindness, I really had to do some deep research into my own life. And, have I really earned the right or the privilege to speak on this subject? In other words, am I a kind person? I had to ask myself, am I truly a kind person? Well, I kind of think I'm kind, but I thought I'd better check around a little bit. So I went to my sweet dear wife, Vicki. 42 years we've been married. And I asked her one morning over coffee, honey, do you think I'm a kind person? And she looked at me for a moment, and she tilted her head and scratched her chin and said, yeah, basically, but, there's some room for improvement. I appreciated her honesty with me and took that to heart, and I checked with my children, I checked with some friends, and yes, they are all in agreement. Oh, Bob here had some room for improvement in being kinder, especially when nerves are a little thin, things like that. Okay, I could receive that. As a human being, I recognize I've not arrived. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have a long ways to go. So I started researching more and more on this subject of kindness, reading everything I could get my hands on, watching every video I could watch, just consuming a massive amount of information on the subject of kindness. And it really created something huge in me. And I'm really eager to share that with you. It was life-changing. It was phenomenal. And I have lots of good news to share with you here in the minutes ahead. But as I was processing this thing about kindness, this subject of kindness, I was recognizing that there had been times in my past that I proactively would seek out to be kind to people, and the result of that was kindness in return. And so I want to share with you here today some of the discoveries I've made on my life journey and some of the great tools that I've picked up along the way on my life journey to have even greater success with kindness in our life, not only in 21, but in the years ahead into the future. First of all, everybody should have received one of my little cards, my little attitude cards, and on this card is the name of Ortega. Ortega was a Spanish philosopher who lived centuries ago, had the most incredible philosophy. His philosophy was this: in living, you can do either one thing or another. Life is a series of choices and decisions. And I want to make the right kinds of choices and decisions, especially as it comes to kindness and the subject of kindness. So the first letter is O, and for the word opportunistic. I like to challenge myself, and I'll challenge us both today, you and I, from this moment forward, to be more opportunistic minded when it comes to kindness. We want to seize opportunities to be kind. We want to look for opportunities to be kind. I challenge myself to kind of like have my antennae on, as my satellite dish. I'm always have an awareness of where I can be kind to somebody else proactively, to reach out and be kind. I want to be prepared for that. And I truly want to seize the opportunity. I remember as a young child, my dad took me aside one time and he was going to teach me. Oh, he taught us a lot, but one thing that Dad taught me was the story of the apple and the seed within. And he said, we human beings are a lot like an apple. There's cuts and bruises and marks, but apples come in colors, different variety of colors and sizes and shapes, much like we human beings. And but Dad, he said, when you cut into the apple here, deep down inside is the core, of course, but deep inside that core is a seed. And Dad took out the seed and he would get a hold of that there seed, and he'd held it up and he'd say, Bobby, he'd say, never, ever underestimate the power of a seed. Well, I took that to heart. On the farm, we planted, corn seeds and wheat seeds and alfalfa seeds, and we'd get alfalfa harvest and oat harvest and wheat harvest when we plant those seeds. And of course, if you plant an apple seed, you'd get an apple tree. And so I took that concept to heart, and as I went out into my life and my life journey, I wanted to continue to plant seeds, but I didn't really want to plant corn seeds. I wanted a different kind of crop. I wanted a harvest of millions of people in my life. And so I decided, I got a big bag of what I call my warm fuzzies, and you should have some now too. And I plant little seeds of warm fuzzies everywhere I go. I was at the grocery store one day. Maybe you've been there. The girl at the counter, she's beeping, and as the food's going across the counter, and I'm watching. I notice she's not smiling. She's not very happy, and I'm thinking, I bet you nobody's giving her a warm fuzzy today. So I asked her, I said, ma'am, has anybody given you a warm fuzzy today? She says, no, nobody's given me a warm fuzzy. And I reach into my pocket and I pull out a handful of warm fuzzies, and I said, here, have some warm fuzzies. And she goes, oh, Nobody's ever given me a warm fuzzy before. And I thought, well, now I should tell you that you can't keep your warm fuzzy. You got to continue to give them away. If you don't, you'll wake up in the morning with a cold prickly in your pocket, and you don't want to wake up in the morning with a cold prickly in your pocket. So make sure you give your warm fuzzies away. And so whether it be at a gas station or a convenience store, or when I would check into a hotel somewhere, or see the maid in the hallway of the hotel, I would reach out and give them a warm fuzzy. Just to say, hey, I recognize you as a human being. Here's a little treat. And I've given out millions of these all over the planet. And it has been such a joy. Just the act of giving these little warm fuzzies has created such a blessing in my life in so many ways. I could spend the next hours upon hours telling you all the stories that have come back and the things that have happened to me in my life because of giving out a simple little warm fuzzy pom-pom. Game changer. Life changing. We might not always have a warm fuzzy with us everywhere we go. We might need to be prepared to give out another kind of warm fuzzy. Maybe it's a hug or a kind word, or maybe physically helping somebody. That's a different kind of warm fuzzy. We'll talk about that some more. But we need to be opportunistic minded, and more so, and you'll see this on your card, we need to be ready for the opportunities in life, because you never know what's going to happen, but we really truly need to be ready and prepared. So I consciously, proactively prepare myself to go out and be kind with people. I want to be kind. And so I'm going to find creative and innovative ways to be kind to people. And I plan for that. I get ready for that. I make a commitment to that. In fact, I'm tenacious in that. You'll see that's the next letter in the Ortega philosophy, the letter T for the word tenacity. It's hard when people are kind of mean and nasty and grumbly and complaining. When you're really needing to be most kind to them, it's hard to do that. And that's when we need to be tenacious in that endeavor. What I do most often is I approach it with a little bit of enthusiasm. That's a choice. Conrad Hilton said this about enthusiasm. He said, enthusiasm is the little recognized secret of success. We never know until we take action with that. So I'm going to be kind to other people with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is like, well, in fact, in the Greek, it means spirit within us flowing out of us. So basically, it's a spirit that flows from us, this enthusiasm. So if you've got good spirit within you, good spirit within your core, it's going to flow out of you naturally and genuinely and sincerely. And that's what I aspire to do, is to make sure that my inner core is healthy. Now, sometimes we struggle. I know I did for a lot of years. And it starts with our self-talk and how we talk to ourselves. See, if we're not kind with ourselves, how can we then really be kind to other people? And you're not kind to yourself if you're saying negative things to yourself about yourself. So it's very important that we work on our positive self-talk. If you go around all the time saying, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not very good at this, or I have a terrible that, you're saying negative things to yourself about yourself. Or I'm fat, or I'm not healthy, or whatever. You're going to get, negativity begets negativity, just like positivity begets even more positivity. So what I did is I erased my tape, my negative tape that I'd been building for years and years and years and years. I decided to just erase that tape and start reprogramming my mind with more positivity. I would say things to myself like, success is an attitude, and I have an attitude for success. Or I might say, every day in every way I get a little better. Or I might say, if it is to be, it is up to me. It's my responsibility. It's a choice. It's a decision. So more positive self-talk. I started creating more positive self-talk in my life, and then that begets more positivity flowing out of your mouth, out of your core as a human being. So we want to be opportunistic minded. We want to be ready for the opportunities in life. And when we make those commitments, we need to be tenacious, approach them with a spark of enthusiasm. That's where the good stuff in life is, that spark of enthusiasm. We want to be goal-minded. We want to have goals. To be proactive, we need to be goal-minded. If I'm going to become a kinder person, I need to have good goals in that area. So maybe we need to set some goals in the kindness realm. On the back of your card, you'll see what I call the goal-achieving formula. Now, the goal-achieving formula is really quite simple. It's just simple as this. If you have a dream, a thought, a wish, a want, you'll achieve about 5% of those automatically, just naturally. Well, I didn't want to settle for that, so I would take my dreams, thoughts, wishes, and wants from my mind, and I'd put them down on paper. When I write them down on paper, get them down in black and white, 35% of those goals become reality. How about that? Just automatically. Have you ever done a to-do list? You'll get about a third of them done. But I didn't want to settle for that. I wanted more out of life than that. So I would set a deadline on my goal. You'll see on the card. If you put a deadline like Friday at 3 o'clock, you'll achieve a 65% success ratio on the achievement of your goals. Now, some people will do that, but many people will not. I want to be goal-minded, goal-driven, especially when it comes to kindness. Now, here's where it gets tough. Most people will refuse to do this. But it's called accountability. You go to somebody you trust, you go to somebody you respect, you go to somebody you love, and you say, here's my goal, here's the all written down, here's the deadline I want to accomplish that by, and you say to that person, hold me accountable to this goal. And amazingly, you'll achieve about a 95% success ratio on your goals automatically. Now, some people will do this. Amazingly, many people will not. They'll just not do it. So my encouragement to you here today is become more opportunistic minded. Be ready for the opportunities in life. When you make those commitments, be tenacious. Approach life with that spark of enthusiasm. Be goal-minded. Set some goals. But probably more than anything, most importantly, is to have what I like to refer to as a proper mental attitude. You see, attitude is everything. It boils 99.9% of everything in life boils down to what's our attitude here. And that's what I really had to do, is ask myself, what is my attitude about kindness? What do I want to change in my life about my attitudes regarding kindness? What can I be? What can I do? How can I operate more effectively going forward? Doesn't matter where we've been. What matters is where we're at right now and where we're going moving forward into our lives. Learn from the past. Make a decision. From here on out, this is how I want to operate. This is how I want to be. This is how I want things to flow from my core. I want to care for people. I want to lift people up. I don't want to be a grumbler, a criticizer, a condemner, a complainer. I don't want to tear people down. I want to lift them up. Well, that's being kind. If you're a person that's going to be building people and lifting people, that's a very kind strategy. And if you're making those kinds of commitments here today, I truly believe we are in the right place. Now, I shared early with you here about my warm fuzzies and the power of a warm fuzzy. But it's not just that. There's more things we can do than just give out a warm fuzzy. Be thinking here. In fact, make some notes. What are some things that you can specifically do to be kind to somebody? In fact, think of somebody right now in your life who's deserving some kindness. Somebody that you can challenge, somebody that you can encourage, somebody, some special words. What can you share with that specific person? Get that person in mind right now. Just write their name down. And what's the one thing that you would share with them? In fact, let's do this. Here's what I do. I begin to examine that person, kind of like a doctor would examine them, or, not physically per se, but I look and I listen and I watch and I hear and I look for something they're doing right and well and healthy. And then what I do is I expose that. In other words, I bring it to light to that person at the right time, in the right place, and the right thing, but I like to expose that. In other words, bring it to light. And while I'm doing that, I let them know how that makes me feel. In other words, it makes me feel good when they do this or do that. Like when the grandchildren do their chores that we pay them to do around here properly, I like to give them good encouragement and build them up and say, hey, you did a good job on the garbage can chore the other day, or picking up the yard chore. I like to build them up with words of encouragement. That's kind. That's being kind. Something we all are very capable of doing. So we're going to examine more. We're going to expose it. We're going to let people know how it makes us feel. We're going to endear ourselves to people. We're going to maybe give them that proverbial pat on the back or a hug or a good firm handshake. Maybe just some good eye contact with them. We're going to let them know that they're important to us somehow with our words. And if it's not with our words, maybe it can be with some type of an action of a physical kindness, like doing something. I remember years ago, a good friend of mine, Bob Smith, was managing a restaurant in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I knew Bob was getting a load in on his big semi-truck to his restaurant one day. It was in the middle of the summer. And I thought, well, I needed to go see Bob, and I know he's busy, so maybe I'll just go and help him unload his truck. And I did exactly that. And I went and took my shirt or my sport coat and tie off and jumped up in the back of that truck, and I started helping Bob unload this truck. And of course, it was air conditioned in the middle of the summer, and that back of the truck, it was pretty nice. But we had a great time, got her done fast. And Bob, he invites me in afterwards for a piece of pie and a cup of coffee, and we were sitting there visiting about that. And the next thing I know, just because I was kind that day, he ends up hiring me to come in and do some meetings for his staff, his wait staff, his waitresses and cooks and all his employees, and do some meetings on team building and attitude and customer service, those kinds of things. And all of that came about, of course, because I made the decision, just the conscious decision, to go help somebody physically with something. And of course, wonderful things came from that. So what can you do to be kind? What kind of action steps can you make and take to be kind to someone in your life? Get that person's name down. What might be one thing that you can say? Maybe what's something that you can do to be kind? Physically do for that person. Maybe it's even just a letter or a note, a handwritten note of thank you, or a bit of encouragement in that respect. Just an idea for us here today to consider on our subject of kindness. You should have received also the ebook of mine, Homegrown Seeds of Success. Hope you received that. And you will see on page 70 of Homegrown Seeds of Success, there's some information on that page called Make Someone's Day. It's a great article to read, but there's a quote on this page I wanted to share with you today. It's a quote from Mark Twain. And he said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. Boy, isn't that the truth? Don't we feel like $1 million when somebody says something nice to us? It just makes us feel so good. And it's so kind. And so my encouragement to you is, if you are going to pay somebody a compliment, when you pay that compliment, don't just say, hey, that's a pretty shirt. Go a little deeper than that. Find something that they've done right or well and expose that to them. But most importantly, you got to tell them why you're telling them that, because that'll provide some evidence to that. You got to support it with some evidence. So, for example, if I pay my sweet wife a compliment, she does a number of things for me around the house. Constantly, she's doing things for me. I'm going to let her know I appreciated the fact that she picked up my clothes or did whatever she did for me, but I'm going to tell her why that's important to me. Not that she picked up my clothes or my underwear or anything like that, but she's just so giving, and it reminds me that that's what I need to do back for her, is do some kind things back for her. And so we practice it here a lot. We try to. so we can not only do it in our home, but do it outside of our home. Take it into the highways and the byways that we travel on. It's a process. And like I say, I've certainly not arrived by any stretch of the imagination on that. It's a commitment that I've made, and a commitment that I'll continue to make for the remaining days of my life here on this planet. I want to plant seeds, healthy seeds. Seeds of success, you might say. Kindness. It's a commitment. And it's something we really have to want to do. It's not going to happen magically. It's daily thinking, planning, preparing, working diligently towards, researching. And speaking of researching, I want to share something with you. Here's what happened in my research. I made a decision. That I wanted to be really unique with this. I decided to build a website, and we call it gobekind.world. That's where you can find it. gobekind.world. You can go there and you'll find our website. And it's full of resources. Movies on kindness, videos on kindness, music on kindness. Glenn Campbell's Try a Little Kindness. I mean, there's kindness out there. I wanted to put it all in one place, brought it to a central home where you could be encouraged, you could be reminded, you could be refreshed on the subject of kindness, because it's an everyday thing. But I'm not done yet. I need your help. Here's what we're going to do. We're soliciting, we're asking everybody we come into contact with to share with us your stories of kindness. Maybe at some point in your life, somebody was kind to you and it had a huge impact on your life. That's wonderful. And that's exciting to hear that. So we are asking you to share those stories with us that we can publish on our website. Stories of kindness that could ultimately encourage somebody else to go be kind. And so if you have any stories of a kind act that someone bestowed upon you, we'd love to hear that. Also, if you were kind to somebody and it was a positive experience, we would love to hear that story too. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, that's kind of braggadocious on myself to tell a story about I was being kind to somebody, but we won't receive it that way at all. We're purely going to think that this was something that you did and that was just kind and you wanted to share the kind story. And we will absolutely receive that, and with your permission, publish that on our website, gobekind.world, and share that with the world to encourage somebody else to also go be kind. Kindness is, yes, an attitude, but it's more of a commitment, a deep, deep commitment that we make in our lives. I don't know about you, but I know I'm committed for kindness. In closing here today, I know we're going to have a Q&A, and I want to answer as many questions as I possibly can for you. Keep in mind that I don't have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination on this subject. I'm still learning and I'm still growing myself, but I'm certainly eager to share with you what I possibly can. So hopefully you're preparing some questions and we can have a bit of a dialogue here today on this subject, and hopefully it will continue to be a dialogue that we can continue to have and encourage each other moving forward into the days and the weeks ahead in our lives.